Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the New Fashion Conservatives podcast. I'm your host, Justin Phillips. With me, as always, the ever-amazing Shadow Governor Voss.
Robin Voss's strongest soldier.
We've got a great show for you tonight, but make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you like what you hear. Make sure to leave us that 5-star on Spotify and Amazon podcast, and thank you to everyone who has. We've seen those numbers go up, and we've been having some great weeks, great months on the pod for listeners, so the efforts you're doing to like, share, and subscribe have been helpful. So first topic tonight, Shadow Gov. Governor Evers signed a bill defining grooming.
And we've talked about this multiple times. Mm-hmm. And so if you've been following, obviously, for the last couple of weeks, you'll know about this bill. But again, there was an issue in state law where there was a gap where essentially we could not charge people that we know, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck. If it's grooming, if it looks like grooming, it probably is grooming. But we couldn't charge it because there wasn't an exact definition. So simply, this would add a definition of what grooming is. And luckily, the governor signed it. He had a moment of clarity and decided to sign it, which was probably in the best interest of everybody.
We kind of said that, 95 votes in the assembly and a voice vote in the Senate, getting it across the line is pretty easy, and it'd be awkward if he vetoes it and forces any of the Democrats to come back and then override his veto. I mean, that's bad politics at the last second, the time when you don't need that.
Well, and he's out the door. He's got 1 foot in the Capitol. He's got 1 foot in retirement. So he doesn't have to give anybody any favors if he doesn't want to. But, credit where credit is due. Sometimes people do things, have the wrong reasons for doing the right things. And this is one of those instances where I'm just happy that it got signed because as we had talked about a number of weeks ago, there was that whole DPI investigation or it wasn't an investigation. It was an investigation by the Cap Times that kind of blew the lid on DPI and a lot of, let's put it, shady behavior by teachers. This maybe there's some instances that this new law could be applied to some of those teachers.
You call it shady. I call it predatory.
Yeah, well, I'm being extremely generous. Yes, predatory, and that's even being generous as well. Creepy, malicious against children. Just there's no wiggle room for that. So glad that got signed into law, of course. But let's also though remember that there were some no votes on this bill.
Yep.
And none other than the Democrat leader of the Socialist Caucus, Francesca Hong, and leading gubernatorial candidate, Francesca Hong, voted no on this bill.
She was one of 6 no votes, including her and 5 guys who probably need their hard drives searched by the FBI.
I'm pretty sure it was the entire Socialist Caucus voted against this. I'm not sure why. I'm pretty sure the Socialist Caucus is just against throwing anyone in jail. At all.
I guess if you're running as an abolish prisons candidate, you can't,
It's kind of hard to abolish prisons if there's people in jail. So it's just easier not to.
The teachers union got to 6 members. But Amanda Nedwesky was the assembly lead, co-authored with Senator Jesse James. So hat tip to them for getting this bill across.
So although not directly in the Socialist Caucus, Kelda Roys, who was not the front runner, who was maybe 5 or 6 deep.
Yeah, polling at 1%.
Polling at 1% in the latest Marquette poll. She, though, is making the rounds. Maybe she's starting to make that push. It sounds like there's a couple candidates trying to make their push now that we're getting closer to the April election and then kind of springboard from there. But Kelda went on 620, WTMJ 620.
Former conservative talk radio station, former talk radio station, former successful station.
Now talking to Kelda Roys about none other than Keldacare, which is her healthcare plan. And I would just like to say, I'm so over. It's just lazy marketing. Obamacare, Keldacare, Trump care.
Well, you had Hillary care in the 90s. Like, I don't know.
We think of something different.
When does a candidate attach their name or a politician attach their name to a healthcare policy and it turned out well for their marketing? Like, it's lazy, but it's also like kind of crappy.
I mean, Obamacare did get signed into law. It's still the law of the land.
And still, amongst at least a very strong part of the population, it polls very negative.
Yeah, but I still hear, and if it were that much of a problem, people would rally against it and vote it down, and we had a chance. But of course, we had famous, John McCain, thumbs down, or thumbs up, or no, thumbs down on the bill. So he was a no on the bill to repeal it. Sorry, it's been a while, but yeah, come on, Kelda, you at least use AI. You could come up with a better name than Keldacare, but I understand people. It's kind of synonymous. They hear Keldacare, Obamacare, and they just, they know it's a healthcare plans. But let's play. It's a minute clip here on Kelda kind of describing that plan.
Wisconsin actually has one of the most competitive health insurance marketplaces in the country. People don't necessarily realize that. We actually have multiple provider-owned nonprofit health insurers in the state. I would like to open up the state health insurance pool and allow anybody to buy in. My plan will let individuals, small businesses, or even big companies or municipalities buy into the state pool, which will spread the risk across a broader population of people and lower the costs for all of us.
Why has no one suggested this before? Because to me, this seems different than creating a new public option, which is a separate, different plan than what state employees currently have.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, we can do multiple things, right? I'm also a supporter of public option. I believe single-payer healthcare would be the obvious way to go. I don't think we should ration it based on your wealth or your job. The question is, I'm running for governor, right? Not Congress. And so what can we do to get us closer to the idea of universal healthcare? How can we lower costs today? And how can we stem the crisis in rural healthcare that is approaching because of the changes that Trump and Tiffany made in the big ugly bill?
So the other voice you heard in that clip was 620 host Kristen Bry, who failed comedian who seems to be hearing about the concept of healthcare for the first time in her adult life.
Well, yes, of course. And it's funny because why has no one ever suggested this before? Like this is some groundbreaking, new take on healthcare, which in some respects it's a little interesting. I got to give her some points for a little bit of creativity, but then I love the caboose of that. Well, universal healthcare is like obviously like the goal. It's like, oh, okay. So this is the wolf in sheep's clothing. Like, oh, we'll just have everyone buy into the state plan, but obviously universal healthcare would be the goal. And like, okay, so you're clearly wanting to move towards that. This is just kind of like the in-between option. Oh, you can buy into it. Well, if the state gets so much control over it, what's saying that they couldn't do something, at least at the state level, to mandate a public option for more people? So yeah, it is kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing, but I will give her some credit. Where's this Kelda been for the last 5 or 6 months?
Certainly been asleep, that's for sure.
And I also have to ask, is Ozempic also covered under Keldacare? I'd like to pose a question. I need the media to ask this. I say this respectfully.
Oh no.
I say this respectfully. Oh, no. Kelda, I think just based off observations off the video, I think she's pulling a Jill Underly.
Okay.
She's pulling a Jill Underly.
Getting a shot.
A little bit of Ozempic. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, I guess who am I to judge? But I just notice things are a little bit different.
People
all of a
notice,
sudden.
you notice, yeah.
And Jill Underly, Jill Underly's was very dramatic. I mean, if you look
at the neck alone,
it's just very dramatic. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're definitely running for office because Ozempic. And then I mean, it's like, did I blink and winter's over? It's like pre-winter, now post-winter, and just using the winter for Ozempic.
Winnie the Pooh.
No, I'm just saying I'm noticing things.
Yeah.
I'm a noticer. I just noticed that.
And you noticed her healthcare policy and her personal care policy.
I'm just saying, take that as you will.
Well, with that, we should talk about something that we've covered on the show a couple of times, and that's the new Richmond School District. Now, as you may recall from our prior episodes, they have been allowing boys in girls' bathrooms, much to the complaint of not only parents and community members, but from female students as well. And because of that policy, the Department of Education has launched an investigation into new Richmond school districts for allowing boys into girls' bathrooms. And that was a announcement from U.S. .edgov, the X account for the U.S. Department of Education, that, they say that one student testified about her fear. Both she and concerned parents have been ignored when it comes to allowing biological males into women's bathrooms. So the Trump administration has launched a full investigation into that. And
certainly great news, and the craziness that's going on in New Richmond. And although New Richmond is kind of out of the way for us, we see a lot of things it's not just the parents sticking up, it's, the kids actually in the school as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very key and very huge. And obviously we obviously saw Libs of TikTok posted a video of a New Richmond student who said, thanks for protecting us, POTUS, as well as Moms for Liberty, and, the Department of Education for doing this, for kind of listening to us. So yes, the parents, people speaking out at the school board meetings, that's important. But having the kids actually wanting to take action and protesting, it kind of puts a name. It's more of an emotional argument. It's harder to be opposed that. It's like public opinion. You're emotionally manipulating people. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, this isn't emotionally manipulation. This is just, hey,
biological reality.
Yeah, biological reality. And hey, I just want privacy when I'm using the bathroom. That's literally it. It's a very low standard that we're trying to meet here. So, obviously when Wisconsin is in the news, I would love Wisconsin to be in the news for good stuff. It seems like 400-year veto, trans this, drag show,
Keldacare that,
Keldacare, Ozempic this, a Madison teacher feeding some special needs kid dog food. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, I saw. Yeah.
I mean, what? You
got a school district with the administrators resigning because they covered up sexual harassment. And
can we have some good stories coming out of Wisconsin? Robin Vos declared supreme leader of Wisconsin. State governance abolished. He's the emperor. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there of things that could happen, just for some good stories here. But yeah, obviously, good job on Libs of TikTok, Scarlett Johnson, Moms for Liberty, everybody that blew that story up, and hopefully Judgment Day is coming for New Richmond School District.
Let's play that video from the young woman from the New Richmond School District who, I think you kind of referenced it, but let the listeners hear.
I just received the best news ever, and to which I want to say thank you to the Trump administration and the U.S. Department of Education and Moms for Liberty. We couldn't have done it without you, and I just want to say thank you for hearing our cries, our pleas, and caring so much about our dignity and privacy. And this is for all the girls that were too scared to share their voice.
Fantastic.
Yes, very good job, and I would love if we had some young men doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Not that they're not, but
stand up for women. Be a feminist. Modern feminism is wanting only girls
just
in
other
girls'
issues
bathroom.
too. On other issues too. It just seems like there's the kind of the old trope. Oh, we're just supposed to be quiet. Just kind of keep to ourselves, whatever. But hey, you have a voice too, young men. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to use it. But speaking of education stuff, shifting to the. I mean, it's still
a little closer to home.
A little bit closer to home, but Brookfield Central hosted part of the, I believe, is the America 250 tour, Department of Education history event.
Yep. So that's called History Rocks.
History Rocks. There you go.
And so U.S. Department of Education has partnered with Turning Point, Moms for Liberty, and other conservative leaning groups to celebrate America's history. And of course, there were some wine moms in Brookfield that got offended on behalf of their children regarding celebrating American history and America's founding 250 years ago. So they went out and whined to WTMJ4's Megan Lee. Of course, they were too scared. I called them chicken shit on the X, that they couldn't face the camera in fear of retaliation of their kid. And the fact is, they're probably in fear of embarrassing their kid for going on and again whining about celebrating life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. So while Megan Lee and producers at WTMJ4 were content to supply a one-sided left-leaning argument against celebrating America, AJ Bayatpour from CBS 58 actually went inside actually did some reporting, actually did some journoing.
Mm-hmm.
And Shadow, do you want to set up that clip?
Well, it was just, I mean, the clip speaks for itself. So I will just play it as is, and I think it speaks for itself.
Hey everybody, it's AJ Biapor coming to you from Brookfield Central High School, where the U.S. Department of Education brought its History Rocks tour to Wisconsin for its one stop in our state as it hits all 50 states across the U.S. There were some concerns from people in the community that because of the groups associated with the U.S. Department of Education's America 250 Civics Education Coalition, such as Turning Point USA, the America First Policy Institute, that there would be a partisan slant to this event. But the program itself wrapped up. Quite frankly, there was no partisan or anything overtly ideological about that event. There was a quiz show about what kids were, about American and Wisconsin history. And then there's a number of artifacts that were brought in, such as a Bible from the late 1500s, some articles or artifacts related to the founding of the country. And then just down there at the end of the counter, the Wisconsin specific artifacts are a Willy Wonka bar and a Wonka's golden ticket. That is a nod, and of course there's an announcement. That of course is a nod to Milwaukee native, the late Gene Wilder. So while concerns persist about the federal government and the education department partnering with overtly right-wing organizations, there was frankly nothing overtly right-wing, political, or ideological about this event in Brookfield today from what we saw.
So I had to apologize to AJ for not being familiar with his game, though we regularly highlight him as probably one of the journos that calls balls and strikes.
Yeah, he's probably the best in the Milwaukee area, at least that I've seen. I think there's some others that do decent work as well, but I think his track record is the best. And honestly, us saying that probably doesn't get him any favor with the majority of the people he's reporting to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But mad respect for just going there and just shooting it straight.
Mm-hmm.
That, hey, okay, Turning Point's technically a part of this. America First Legal is a part of this. But he's just like, yeah, we just went in there, but there was nothing overtly partisan about it. They were just kind of talking about the fact that America's been around for 250 years and talking about education, in that setting. And so I had, I didn't tweet much this week, but I did have some thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, first, great reporting by AJ will undoubtedly make some liberals upset. But here's the thing. The right has the ability to take something and not make it into a partisan issue. It's kind of a weird concept on the left to not make something partisan, but they boycott stuff because they assume everything is partisan.
Mm-hmm.
That's their worldview.
They have to take anything that's not partisan and make it partisan.
Which is why, for example, the great E. Brooks Uncut put this on his Twitter saying, sounds like a great celebration of American history. Naturally, a bunch of joyless shrews, including Robin Vining, who represents the district, opposed the event because they hate Trump. And of course, Robin Vining put on social media, she linked to the article about, quote, it just feels like indoctrination. Brookfield parents, students, a question. Now, that was the article title. And then she said, to be very clear, I declined the invitation. I am not attending this event. So mind you, the CBS headline said, quote, it just feels like indoctrination.
Right. It's vibes.
It just feels like indoctrination. These people are delusional. These people don't have the ability to think that some things can just be cool and cool because it's history, and you can hate our American history because you hate everything else about America. But there are some things where you can just honor what we did in history, the good things, realize the bad things that happened too, and just be thankful where we came from.
Yeah, warts and all, this is still the greatest country to exist in the history of the world.
Bar none.
Mm-hmm.
And no, there's not even a close second here. So this is kind of just a normal, it's a projection of the left where they can't think of anything outside of the partisan lenses. So everything the right does is partisan. Anything that TPUSA does, and to be fair, most of the things they do are partisan. But here's an example where, a reporter goes in, says, guys, they had a Willy Wonka bar, honoring Gene Wilder. Okay. we're not talking about like tax policy or something.
Right.
So, and
this is as American as a flyover before the start of a football game during the national anthem. Like, and that's what they're hating on here.
Yeah, of course. And there was a comment. So I posted this, on, the Bird app, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And someone said, you show us a Bible in a public school and then tell us there's no agenda. You're a hack. No, they posted that on AJ's. Yeah. So as you heard in the video, they had a old Bible from like the 1500s.
It's kind of cool.
It's really old. It's cool, and despite what the liberals would say, we are a Christian nation, although it's subsided in recent decades. But we will be back. No worries. But it's just it's a cool Bible.
Here's the thing.
Like the Gutenberg Bible.
Right.
Like a cool Bible.
I remember having, for some reason, taking one of my classes, there was a biblical reference. We wanted to look it up. Had to go to the school library. Said, hey, do you have a Bible? They said, yes.
Perfect.
Had the Bible, looked it up, did the thing. Because there's, in some English book or some whatever the reference was, it's been so long I can't remember. But there was still one in the school then. So don't tell me it's like a pearl clutching moment. A Bible.
Well, and this is kind of
a work of scripture.
Well, and this is how the left has steadily moved to the left on this, where public school you used to be able to have. I mean, you would say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
You talk about God, religion, the Bible, and now even the mere sight. This is the situation. Even the mere sight of an old Bible on display as an exhibit in a school after hours, not even in a what's the word, like a tangential event, not even really put on by the school.
Yeah,
and all those qualifiers, and it's
not like they made
some
them
agenda
like read passages. It's not like they had to put their hand on it and
Would've
take
been
some oath to America.
Would have been based.
Would have been super good. Would have done it myself.
I mean, but we have all naturalized citizens have to put their hand in swear they take an oath to the United States. Would love if we did that more often. But yeah, it just shows how crazy that even the libs can't take like some things can just be good because they're patriotic and they're historical.
There were some protests outside. I think a few dozen students from Brookfield Central went out there and whined and complained. And of course, there were some weird adults nearby, and you see a couple of those pictures posted, and you have to wonder if any of them are going to need to get a new hobby or a new job, if you will, because they're probably there being paid to protest, but are they going to need to get a new hobby now that Tony Evers has signed the anti-grooming bill into law?
So they might have to hit the job portal.
So we have to talk a little bit about Eric Toney and that interesting story coming out of Fond du Lac area. So a while back, before we had our pod, even though we would have feasted on this article, Caden Stakowitz, 20, was sentenced for a January 2025 arson of Congressman Glenn Grothman's office for setting it on fire over the TikTok ban. So you may remember this. Absolutely ridiculous crash out. Can you believe that was like 15 months ago? We were talking about banning TikTok in
March of last year.
Yeah.
What a wild time.
And this guy crashes out, decides to light Glenn Grothman's office on fire. And of course, has now been sentenced to 7 years of prison and 7 years supervision for that arson. So Eric Toney is out here doing work, though, getting this done, while Josh Kaul is announcing he's joined another lawsuit of left-leaning states and left-leaning AGs against the Trump administration, and also hiring left-leaning lawyers from environmentalist think tanks.
Well, and Josh Kaul is trying to shore up his left flank, because, again, if you've been listening to the pod, you know that Josh Kaul is kind of seen as a moderate, and he probably actually is. And I say that loosely, of course.
Yeah, I mean, as Wisconsin's top cop, if you're a Democrat and Wisconsin's top cop, you kind of have to, at least in some respects,
have some common sense.
Yeah,
which is why we can't think about the next potential Democrat AG.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the Josh Calls of the world won't make it through a primary anymore. Right. It's going to be like, I don't know, Francesca Hall, like name any. It's like Chris Taylor running for AG or something,
right?
Like just some hack. That's
the Planned Parenthood's legal counsel,
exactly
level hack.
Yeah, it could be really bad. So, and I'm not trying to say, be thankful we have Josh Call, because I'm not saying
he's a do nothing.
He's tacking his name and the state onto all these lawsuits against Trump to show the liberals that, I can go after Trump. Like, I'm not just Wisconsin's top cop. I'm a partisan against Trump too. So he's kind of trying to do that, of course.
As I say, he's a do nothing Nepo baby who only cares about environmentalist bullshit.
But he has done a lot of that. But I just want to say the guy, and of course we don't have video, so I can't show it. But Eric Toney posted a picture of the guy that they prosecuted. And so Eric Toney posted this on his Twitter X profile. This guy that he put away for 7 years, plus 7 years of supervision. And this guy, he looks like someone that would crash out over TikTok. And I say that kind of jokingly, but he also looks like he probably spends more time on Reddit than on TikTok. And for those who can't see, he's kind of got long hair.
We'll link to it in the show notes, but it is tweeted by Eric Toney himself.
Yeah, he's got the long hair, and he's got like mutton chops,
like Starburns.
Yeah, like I don't even know if people under the age of 30 even know what mutton chops are.
They have to find out.
Just look at any 18-year-old or 18-year-old 1800s movie, and they have like the beard, but it's
before motion pictures.
Well, you know what I mean. People don't see mutton chops anymore unless they're in like a movie.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Look for any civil.
I'm not saying
any Civil War general. There's like a 1 in 5 chance they've got the mutton chops.
Correct. Which is why I said movie, because people don't have mutton chops unless you're this guy. Which honestly, I don't know if he has mutton chops by choice or if he just can only grow it on his side and not on his chin. It's just kind of an odd situation, but
as friend of the show, Wisconsin's conservative sponge would say, looks exactly how one would suspect.
I mean, yeah. It checks out. Sometimes things they don't surprise you. And I think the moral of the story is just don't crash out over TikTok. It's not worth it.
So next thing I want to shift topics to is actually something you tweeted that caught my attention. You tweeted Town Hall, having posted a video of Democrat Rebecca Cook fleeing the scene when confronted about calling ICE disgusting. So I'm going to play this clip really quickly. It's only about 20 seconds, and then we'll turn it over to the Shadow Gov.
Rebecca, why did you call ICE disgusting? Rebecca, do you support the abolishment of ICE? Rebecca, I was wondering why you called ICE disgusting. Rebecca, do you support the deportation of illegal immigrants that rape and murder U.S. citizens? Rebecca, can you please answer the question?
So she was running away as fleeing into the lacrosse club for what I assume is a fundraiser, and doing it in heels in a very snowy weather. So, she was scared that she was not worried about slipping on the ice.
Well,
slip
on the ice.
So the tracking game has changed a lot since I was the tracker for the Republican Governors Association in 2010 of Tom Barrett. It was definitely a be seen, don't be seen or try not to be seen, and certainly don't be heard strategy. It wasn't a go throw the camera up in his face. But I had some fun stories from that time. One of them was he was touring a cranberry bog, and they were going to take a truck out to look at the bogs, and they kind of joked that they'd put me in the bed. They'd let me ride with them, and as long as I was in the bed of the trunk, bouncing around. And another time, before a Packer game, so the candidates go and shake hands with all the people going into the stadium, and as people get closer to game time, they get it's Packer game, they're tailgating and getting a little drunk. Some guy is just standing there shouting a gay slur about Tom Barrett, just at top of his lungs. Tom Barrett is you know what I'm going to say. I don't want to even say it. He's just walking around saying it, and he makes eye contact. He's like the last guy to go into the stadium, and he makes eye contact with Tom Barrett. He's like, come on, man. Why you got to say that? And Tom's like, he's a nice individual, like milquetoast, boring white guy with no policy and the fear of his own shadow and
an empty suit.
Yeah. Looks at this guy. Come on, man. Why are you going to say that? The guy looks at us. Who the fuck are you?
He didn't even know it was him.
Didn't even know it was him. Didn't even know it was him. And he's like,
so this is just this
just a guy.
Guy had too many Miller Lights and was just really hating on Tom Barrett.
But of course, for Tom Barrett in that situation, I
don't know what's more embarrassing.
The moment before that was more embarrassing, in my opinion, which is if you're going to buy a brand new jersey at the Spirit Shop 30 minutes before the game, take the little holograph
off,
decal off. But yeah, tracking is definitely a bit different now and a bit more in your face. And again, got to respect the game because it takes a lot. Like
it's a little bit of you got to
have some onions to go in and do that.
I mean, and for those who haven't seen the video yet, go ahead and watch it because it is funny. Because obviously Democrats, even Republicans, they know that they got trackers. They know that there's people tracking them, watching where they go, yada yada yada. And it's so funny because in the video, they're loading stuff into the car. Rebecca, why'd you call ICE disgusting? They immediately stop what they're doing. The car, or like the SUV trunk door is open. They instantly just walk in and just like, if they were probably somewhere, I guess they are in La Crosse, someone could just steal her car. They just got out of Dodge, didn't say anything. And
I gotta say though, I have to credit one of your people that commented on that. I said Rebecca was walking into the La Crosse club, probably going to a political fundraiser. It's entirely possible she was picking up a shift as a waitress, as she claims she does all the time.
Someone in my comment section said, and table 7 still hasn't gotten their food yet. Yeah. Gosh. Well, and honestly, and I'll say this, love DVO. If DVO wins this election, he'll never lose.
Right. It's spike the football.
It's spike the football. Like they are throwing everything in the kitchen sink at him. She's a pretty decent candidate.
But let's not forget, she still has to get through a primary. I think she will. I'm sure she will.
I kind of forgot there was a primary.
There's still kind of, there's not 100% chance. I mean, Kalashi will probably put it at like 90, 95.
Kalashi?
Whatever. What is it?
Kalshi?
What did I say?
Kalashi?
I don't know what I said.
I think it's Kalshi.
Whatever.
I think it's what the kids are saying.
Is that the one that Giannis owns?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Kalshi.
All right. Kalshi.
It's all right. We're learning together. It's okay.
I'm getting old. Don't need to learn things. I'm sure the betting markets say that. The betting markets probably put it at 85, 90, 95% chance she'll win, but it's not a done deal yet.
Again, I just completely forgot that there was a primary. So that's how little I've checked in on the primary and how certain I am that she ends up winning it.
All right. So with that, I do want to shift to another topic. It's a little more esoteric, a little closer to home when it comes to political campaigns. But there's been a bit of a dust up in the Waukesha County Sheriff's race. Now, Waukesha County Sheriff is a partisan elected position that comes up in the fall with a lot of others. And in Waukesha County, as you know, many may know, you win the Republican primary, you're almost certain to win the general election. It's just Democrats really can't run and win that seat. But there are 3 Republicans running. I kind of want to just lay all this out. I don't want to take a side. I don't want to sound like I'm favoring one candidate over the other. We'd like to have them all on. We'd love for them to kind of explain some of this nuance on their policy positions or what they're trying to do to.
Well, and the nuance is so important in these local races. Yep. So it's really hard to just look at someone's website in this instant and be like, oh, I'm going to, that's the person or whatever. So, and that's, that's kind of why we made the podcast in the first place, is to help, because some of these local races, I mean, this is a 3-way primary, not just, 1, 2, we got 1, 2, 3. And so not that it was already hard enough, but I certainly, I need to do some research myself on this. So certainly looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm going to lay this out and, we'll kind of comment as we go along, but there are 3 candidates running. One of them is Nick Olinger. Another is John Gescheidmeyer, which I've already said enough that I'm terrible with pronunciations of some candidates' names. And,
no, I thought that was good.
Gescheidmeyer's, yeah.
Or is it Scheidmeyer?
No, it is Gescheid.
It is Gescheid.
Mm-hmm.
Gescheidmeyer.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, Danny Day. There's already a whisper campaign that's been kicked up. So let me give you a little background on all three. So John Gescheidmeyer is a county board supervisor, and he's in real estate on top of being a police officer for 20 years with the city of Greenfield. John has the endorsements from local electeds and county board members, including the village president of Menominee Falls. Nick Ollinger is a captain with the Waukesha County Sheriff's Office and has the backing of the YRs and outgoing Chief Severson, as well as chiefs from other counties, and lives in Menominee Falls. So my Menominee Falls bias is showing through here. And Danny Day is a 22-year special agent with the FBI and seems to have the backing of Turning Point. So like I said, almost immediately, people started this whisper campaign. And one of the things I heard was that Nick didn't have the backing of the rank and file. You know, he's got backing from other county sheriffs. I think both Kenosha and Racine county sheriffs have endorsed Nick. Then recently, Danny Day started telling people that if elected sheriff, he would appoint Alfonso Morales, the well-respected former Milwaukee police chief who was put through the ringer by the Milwaukee Police and Fire Commission, as his number 2. But it was quickly pointed out that Danny Day can't do that. And he had to put out a lengthy statement, said Morales would only be a consultant. Now, Turning Point recently announced they're going to do some ballot chase event with Morales and Danny Day there. And what I found interesting about the poster was they gave equal billing to Alfonso Morales as they did Danny Day. So the other thing about Danny Day, and again, I'm not trying to knock on any of the candidates. I know we're spending a little more time talking about him than some of the others, but he's an FBI agent, which I think is still pretty cool overall. But I think it's viewed as pretty toxic and could be an unfortunate knock on him. He joined the Bureau in 1998, served through multiple administrations, but it was during the Obama and Biden years when the FBI was weaponized to spy on Christians and conservatives. And I think it now has a toxic label. So wanted to lay all of that out there. Shadow Gov, do you have any takes right now other than, having Nick Ollinger being backed by the YRs and I think with Danny Day being backed by Turning Point, I think this could turn into another Bridget Shaneborn, Dave Moss election for judge, if you remember. One of the things that we've lamented before is like that was very toxic, that there are still hurt feelings about that almost a year later. Mm-hmm. There are still people who, aren't friends, aren't talking to each other, aren't, on the same page.
Which is a little ridiculous.
Yeah. But I think what I'm worried about is this has the making of that again, we're going to get a Republican sheriff out of this, but
who is it going to be?
Behind the scenes, I think we're going to have people who are in their corners and going to feel hurt coming out of this primary.
Well, I believe I have certainly more questions than I do have takes right now. Mm-hmm. But it seems like there's two very distinct camps, lines that have been drawn between the Ollinger camp and then the Day camp. Mm-hmm. And then we have Gescheidmeyer, who's kind of in the middle, doesn't necessarily have a camp, at least that's pre-drawn, and can kind of probably go back and forth. It might provide him a lane in that way, especially if Nick and there's too many names, Day start attacking each other. And and I don't know if they will, but definitely sounds like this has the makings of kind of a shadow campaign. I guess my thing is, and certainly I could talk to people on both sides of this and figure this out. And I probably should, considering that the election,
no, it's an August primary.
Yeah, sorry. I'm getting my April elections mixed up with my November and August elections. And I just would have to probably have questions of both and say, why did the YRs endorse Nick? Like, what was the reasoning behind it? Mm-hmm. I do think, obviously, having Severson endorse him, I mean, incumbent sheriff, now outgoing sheriff, endorsing a replacement, that means a lot. And especially, Kenosha and Racine have both, endorsed him. So, I believe Racine is Schmeling. And Schmeling's
he's a good guy.
He's a good guy, pretty right wing, He did all this stuff. He does a lot of stuff for Supreme Court justices and doing ads with them and such. And then you kind of got the Turning Point, and obviously Turning Point has a lot of credibility and a lot of infrastructure built up to help their candidates. So, but I was curious as to why. You know, is there some kind of like behind the scenes fight that kind of artificially started, where there's actually there might not be anything necessarily inherently wrong with a Nick versus Day race, and there's like behind the scenes there's more.
Yeah, that's what I think what's going on. I think that it's that.
Yeah, and there probably is a lot of that, and I probably just have to have some more conversations with people and hopefully report back with more information, because this is the one thing with these nonpartisan race. Well,
these partisan primaries.
Yes, partisan primaries where everyone probably more or less agrees. So like, what's the differentiating? You know, people like to think that, we win tough races by being as moderate as possible. That's not entirely true. You need to draw clear contrast, and you need to give voters a reason to vote for you and not the other person. You need to contrast clearly that the messages are different. So I'm curious how that's going to happen for this race.
I said we'd love to have all three of them on the program,
and I can explain.
That's definitely a goal of ours. Like I said, we've talked about having more interviews, and we have some scheduled coming up for you guys that you get to learn a bit more about those candidates for some April elections. And of course, we're going to go into fall as well. So we've got a whole summer to interview a lot of them. But if you're someone from Turning Point that listens to the show, or someone from the YRs, give us that background. We're not going to talk about it necessarily on the show if you don't want to, but I'd like to know, like you said, how those lines got drawn.
Well, and the Al Morales thing is, I think it's the oddest thing though. And you pointing out like the billing on the
it's 1-to-1. It's the same. They're right next to each other. It's like a ticket. Yeah,
it's just kind of an interesting.
It's an interesting strategy.
It's an interesting strategy, and I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people in Waukesha County know Al Morales. I mean,
he lives in Waukesha County, I believe.
And I didn't even know that, but a lot of people probably remember him from the days when he was in Milwaukee. The Milwaukee media market goes into Waukesha County. You get plenty of Milwaukee news in Waukesha County. You hear all the nonsense that went down during those days when he was chief. So I guess I can kind of get it, because he's kind of a reputable name, and maybe Day doesn't have enough local backing, or not necessarily backing, but doesn't have enough local name ID, where Al Morales kind of certainly is known in the area. I have so many questions and not enough answers, and
that's why we're going to.
It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating. That's all I know.
Invite for all three again once that April election kicks off, and once we get through that, let's
we'll have some time.
Fall, and we'll have some time to interview some folks. So another race that we're keeping an eye on, even though, 3, 2. So another race we're keeping an eye on is the 11th State Senate District, which is to replace Steve Noss. And there has been a second candidate that jumped in that race. Unfortunately, it's not Robin Voss. As much as we want him to,
there's still time.
Just play the greatest trick.
There's still time.
So Ellen Schutt, current candidate for that race, she was the former state rep from, I believe it was the kind of that western part of that district, the Walworth County side, Lake Geneva side. So talking about another race that we've been following is the 11th State Senate District, which is the race to replace Steve Noss. Currently, Ellen Schutt is one of the candidates for that seat. She is a former state representative from kind of that western side of that district now, the Walworth County side, Lake Geneva side. And a new candidate has jumped in to that race. And unfortunately, it's not Robin Voss, as much as he has.
Sad.
Yeah.
There's still time. He can still get in if he wants.
Could play the funniest trick on the entire state Senate. But
gosh, April Fool's is going to hit like crack.
I'd love it if he just did it on April Fool's.
Please. I might have to. I should not speak any further. I might have to do some coordinating.
The new woman in that race is Sandy Wiedmeyer. What's interesting about her, she's from that Kenosha side. I believe she's a former longtime Kenosha County chair. But what's even more interesting to me is that while Amanda Nedweski did turn down the opportunity to run, she did recruit one of her good friends to take that seat. And, frankly, if you're someone who's in anything, you want to work with your friends. And so having a friend in the opposite chamber, it's got to be a good thing. So, two candidates both have strong conservative backgrounds, and I think either of them have a real shot to win that race. But
we'll see how it plays out. Yeah. But certainly interesting. Obviously, we saw the majority leader endorsed Ellen Schutt off the bat. So, and obviously Sandy just got in, so we'll have to see. And there's a long way to go. Many months still left for the race.
Yeah, and I think that's another one where they're both conservative. They both have the resume to back that up. So what's going to be that differentiator in that race? And hopefully get a chance to interview both of them over the course of the summer.
Awesome.
So sticking with campaigns, I got to play you this clip. So there are a couple other candidates that are kicking the tires on a run for governor. Ron Bishop, and there is now a draft Tim Rantham movement. So Tim Rantham ran statewide in 2022, went on the Rippin' Rabbit Hole podcast, and I have to play for you the clip. So I listened to the whole thing. I truly did. I listened to the entire interview, which wasn't really, these folks, and, not going to knock another podcaster out there. Found this on Rumble, found it on YouTube, like you can find our show. Just kind of still playing the greatest hits from 2020, 2021. The we the people believe in, medical freedom and election integrity, and the 2020 election was stolen, and not stuff that necessarily resonates with voters going into 2026 the way it did, but they do have a song.
The Draft Rantham campaign.
Yes.
And I hope you enjoy this, Tim, if you hadn't heard it. And don't be afraid to dance, folks.
Because I know I always do.
Here in Wisconsin, we got a chance to rise. A leader so true, you can see it in his eyes. Tim Rantham's the name, standing tall and proud. Against the old machines, we're gathering a crowd. No more shadows lurking, it's time to shine the light. With a team of volunteers, we'll bring the truth to fight. He's proven conservative, fighting day and night. Ready to take back our future, it's our time to ignite. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. When I say ram, you say thun, let's go. Dance to the beat of democracy alive. Join the Draft Rantham campaign, come on and thrive.
An absolute cringe banger. I don't know if those words can be put together with the Gen Z, Gen Alpha audience.
I mean, honestly, the thing is AI can do a masterful job at making a song that's catchy. I mean, yeah, you're bouncing your head a little bit. Okay, I can get into this.
It's an earworm. That's gonna be in the rest of our listeners' heads for the rest of the day.
Well, I don't know if I would say that, but AI does have the ability to take literally anything and make it catchy. So I guess good for them. The draft Tim Rantham movement. And for those that don't know, I mean, there might be a segment of our audience who doesn't know Tim Rantham. He ran in 22, of course, former state rep. He tried to make another comeback in the legislature in 20.
Would have been 24.
Would have been 24. Sorry, It wasn't that long ago.
It was a special. No, it wasn't a special. He ran for state senate.
State senate in a primary and lost. So there's still that. But I must also remind people, he's not the only one that has AI songs. Okay.
Oh, tell me more. Please play these.
I'm not going to bore the listeners too much here, but I have been, but I don't release them. I don't put this on.
This doesn't have a club beat. I'm not for it.
Well,
I need the bass dropped.
Well, let's see. Here we go.
Robin Voss is the boss, flipping beats like a grandmaster. He's leading the way, leaving dents in disaster. EDM rap style, he's on another level with his slick flow and political acumen. He's the devil. He's got the energy, the passion, and the drive. Firing up the crowd, make it dance, take a dive. His beats drop hard like a thunderstorm in the night. With every rhyme he spits, he's setting the stage alight. Robin Foster, EDM sensation.
And it goes on and on.
That is another club banger. I heard the beat drop.
Yes, it did drop. And now what people don't see is I have like 99 other songs. 97 of them are about Robin Voss. No, that's not. It's a little bit of an exaggeration. But yes, there's some fun to be had. So I can't dog on them too much for making a draft Tim Rantham when I basically make draft Robin Voss for state senate. And all I'm saying is April Fools could be a lot of fun.
But another fella who's kicking the tires on a campaign, saw this in the Journal Sentinel, Ron Bishop, who is the mayor of Waupun. Yeah.
Waupun.
You're just giving me crap for not being able to pronounce anything.
No, it is Waupun. Sorry.
Yeah. So he announced he was kicking the tires on something, and you know, frankly, hey, he gets to get his name in the news. I'd love it too. I saw that was by Jesse Apoyan and Molly Beck. And just to be clear, if Jesse or Molly want to waste a few column inches and grab some clicks, I highly encourage them to write the headline: ultra mega alt-right podcaster, two-time Green Bay Packer GM applicant, and voted Wisconsin's sexiest dad, according to a card my wife got me from Hallmark. Justin Phillips considering a run for office, and they can fill in any office. Right.
U.S. Senate.
Yep. U.S. Senate, Congress, the governor, the presidency. They can throw them all on there.
You're starting your exploratory campaign now.
Yes. Draft me for anything. So in reality, I think maybe there's some folks in Madison, maybe some people that probably associate with Tommy Thompson, because I saw Ron kind of did a name drop in there of Tommy, that found out that he's actually too old to run and maybe tried to recruit him into doing it, and he didn't say no. I think that's the level of campaign he's at now, and I doubt he actually jumps in. I think, it's late. It's a lot of money that you got to make up, and a lot of name ID that you
and that's
got
tough
to do.
Overtake.
But I to further kind of emphasize something, I know, Ron's a good guy. He's a conservative. We like him. Friend of the show. Like, the way the Turning Point crew in Wisconsin kind of went at him, they seemed to need a little bit of a history lesson, quite frankly. Someone coming out and saying that he's to the left of Paul Ryan, like, anyone who's over 30 might take a little umbrage with the lack of history and lack of political knowledge coming out of someone saying that, because, Paul's not, you might have some problems with it. You might not have loved his time as speaker.
Yeah.
But you look at the whole body of his work as a member of Congress and his fights for entitlement reform and, being the vice presidential candidate and kind of delivering that message and being such a big part of Wisconsin. Let's not write him off that same way that the Turning Point youngins want to.
Well, and I just, he's a listener, so respect where respect is due. Certainly appreciate him for taking the time to listen to the show. But that being said, I do think that there is something to be said about there are people that, they don't necessarily like the kind of Trump anointing candidates or so. And in a way, Trump, yes, he endorsed Tom Tiffany, but there's just this kind of air about the primary where it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of opposition to Tom. And obviously, Showman ran a good campaign, came up short with the endorsement, and kind of realized that, this is kind of the end of the road for the campaign. I'm sure of course, the Republican Party is not a monolith in any way, shape, or form, and there are different wings of the party. Now, I think a lot of it has been consolidated into "quote unquote" the MAGA wing, and I say that loosely because I think I'm all over the place myself, and I can find myself into different camps, depending on the policy, depending on the issue at hand. So I think there is something to be said about some people wanting something different. However, I do think the Democrats are having this uber competitive primary where we had the uber competitive primary in 2022, and I'm frankly exhausted from that primary still, and I don't think conservative voters can take two in a row quite like that, where it's so just nasty and divisive that it just fractures the party so Democrats can coalesce around a rock, if they needed to. I mean, they're just
vote blue no matter who.
Yeah, vote blue no matter who, and they are good at it. And Republicans have to work harder at coalescing. So I'm okay, if we just stick on the path that we have. We're kind of this is our game plan. We just got to go with it, And who says it'll be effective in the end? But I think it's our best potential winning strategy, at least right now.
So 2 things I want to add to this that you kind of jogged my memory on. First is I think there is a genuine enthusiasm gap for voters that you look in that last Marquette poll. And it's not necessarily an enthusiasm gap by party, but I think there is an exhaustion for voters. We're less than a year removed from a very difficult, very expensive, very overwhelming Supreme Court race that usually gets 1/10 of the attention that this one got. And then you walk it back to the presidential election. Then you walk it back to, that gubernatorial primary in 22. And you walk it back all the way to, 2010. Then you had immediately went into recalls in 11 and 12 and specials and all these sort of things. I think it was like 2/3 of the state had to vote in a state Senate recall between 11 and 12. So, for decades, Wisconsin voters have gone perpetually from campaign cycle to campaign cycle. So I think there is a bit of fatigue and there's a bit of exhaustion in the voting public right now that aren't the, terminally online political degens that we are, that just want a break and are going to tune out for a while and probably going to jump back in September. The other thing that I think is interesting, and again, I had a friend point this out to me, so I want to read the text she sent me, or paraphrase it a little bit, that I think what's really different about this race, especially with Tom Tiffany, and I don't say this as a knock, don't hear what I'm not saying. There's not necessarily the cult of personality around Tom Tiffany that there was around Scott Walker, that there was around Tommy Thompson. I think, maybe that accounts for a bit of the enthusiasm gap, that there weren't people who were just like a day one Kool-Aid drinkers like they were for Scott Walker and like they were for Tommy Thompson and these people who I think now become lampreys or remoras on the corpse of Tommy Thompson, and probably doing a little bit with that with Scott Walker too. But Tom Tiffany is a different breed and a different type of candidate for a more modern election, and it's going to be fine. I'm not worried about the enthusiasm gap come September, October. I just think right now people just want to be tuned out, and you don't have, again, that cult of personality around the gubernatorial candidate that the way you did from our last couple guys.
Well, speak for yourself, but I am a Tom Tiffany cultist, 100%. So speak for yourself. I've always obviously he represents a very conservative area of the state. So is it kind of cool to have a candidate that, we voted on the way, all the things I wanted him to when he was in Congress type of thing. Then again, I also like winning governor races more than I do signature
ideological purity.
I mean, trust me, it's a balancing act, of course. I mean, what is it? You can want the most conservative candidate that can win.
The Buckley rule, 100%.
Yeah, but at the same time, I do think that voters have, in many ways, kind of been shortchanged on certain things. And I'm talking, this is more national. This is not necessarily Wisconsin specific. And so a lot of Republican voters, and I put this in my article actually about Robin Vos and why Robin Vos is the model of Republican leadership, but Republicans have kind of been clamoring for, I want something done. I want it done now. But this isn't a new phenomenon. And so they want, the most conservative candidate. And same with Democrats. They want the most progressive. They want the most radically progressive socialist candidate. And, sometimes it works for them. Sometimes it doesn't. But I just think Tom is unique enough. We're breaking kind of a mold with the Southeast and stuff. I know congressmen have kind of got a spotty record when it comes to governor.
Yeah.
That's not a knock on Tom at all. That's just kind of the way
observing the history of Wisconsin.
I just think that it's a unique with the up north, with his ability to get out the Trump voters and overperform in the 7th, where Trump did well. I just think that there is a unique path forward, and I think we have to try it.
Yep.
Because if we don't, trust me, I love the Southeast supremacy. Don't get me wrong. I love Southeast supremacy, but that's not totally reality. And I would rather win than live in a false reality that I've concocted in my head.
So one other candidate I want to talk about just real quickly. There is one serious candidate for Wisconsin's Secretary of State, and that's Nate Polnow. And got to talk to him a while back at a YR event in Waukesha, and a cool guy, and can't wait to have him on the show. I know he's said he wants to come on. He said he was a listener before he was a candidate, and
very nice.
Great guy.
I'd love to hear.
A lot of cool background that I can't wait to explore with him. But he's out there having a bit of a back and forth with Sarah Godlewski, and Nate went to the office of Sarah Godlewski because she claimed that the office serves customers 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. And if you stop by during business hours, you'll see the work we're doing to modernize the office, from launching an online records portal to increasing transparency to expanding digital services for Wisconsinites across the sea. More. Now, she's trying to knock Nate because he posted at 6:11 p.m. that her office was closed, but Nate came back with receipts. And he said, your office was closed at 12:40, and he had the timestamp to the original photo on there. Photo, yeah. And, Sarah Godlewski can't even get their office hours right. What else is she getting wrong? And the fact is she's getting everything wrong because if there's one thing she does, it's overemphasize the value of the Wisconsin Secretary of State's office.
The Secretary of State obviously has no power. Very limited, I should say. So the races tend to not be exactly high profile.
Kind of an afterthought.
And that's putting it prominently, But I like Polnow, fun dude, kind of a big personality, kind of down to earth. That's, just the way I see him. I like the farming videos, just got off the farm, whatever. Those are all good. But yeah, getting a couple shots in at Sarah Godlewski. It's an underhand softball throw, but love to see the Secretary of State race get a little chipper,
little spicy,
little chipper. And of course, Sarah's running for lieutenant governor, so she can't be bothered to be at her Secretary of State job. But to be honest, I can't blame her for not doing her job because she has nothing to do.
She tried to one up Nate on that post and asked Grok, what are the hours of the Wisconsin Secretary of State's office? And Grok responded, office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., which means she can't even get her office hours right. And, one of those things that you thought was an own, but becomes a self-own.
So good for Nate Polnow getting a little jab in, and I guess we'll be watching that race.
Yeah, I guess so. If we have to.
If we have to.
No, we want to have Nate on. And we rip the office and I know it doesn't do a whole lot, and hopefully someone like Nate either knows that.
I'd rather have a conservative than knows Sarah Godlewski.
We can get some more power of it, and even John Leiber, when we had him on, and you can go check out that interview we had with him in early December. It kind of said that if you know what one state treasurer does, you know what one state treasurer does. It's different across every state, and he kind of knew it was limited power too. So finally, Shadow Gov, you a sauna guy?
I am not a sauna guy. I the steam rooms.
Sure.
Do not. No. Makes you feel like you're dying. It's like, I know you sweat all the impurities. I sweat enough as it is. Yeah. I could just sweat out the impurities normally. I'm
a big fan of hitting the sauna after the gym.
The sauna's okay. Steam room makes you feel like you're suffocating.
Saunas are having their moment right now, and I did this cool one in Door County where you sit in the sauna for 10-15 minutes and you jump straight into Lake Michigan. Oof. And we were doing this in late October, early November.
So it was chilly.
And you want to talk about an immediate shock to the system, and
it'll wake you up.
Yeah. And so I asked this because I want to set this up, but I want to tell a bit of a story. So one of the first bills, and I think I've told this on the show before, but one of the first bills I ever got across the finish line in the state legislature was to allow pedal taverns to operate legally in the state.
Yes, you did mention that.
And, there was a whole thing between the Tavern League and pedal taverns and, allowing drinking while peddling. And then, there's a back and forth for a while. And what really kind of got it across the finish line was the fact that there were members of the Tavern League calling the Tavern League saying, pedal taverns are the reason my bar can stay open, the reason we're successful. And, had a great time getting to know the fellas that do that. And, they're guys from the city of Milwaukee who, probably never really interact with their legislators. And they come to us and they get Lena Taylor and my boss to sign on a bill. And the number 2 on that bill was Lena Taylor, was Glenn Grothman. And we had a great laugh about the fact that
what a combo.
Yeah, what a combo. So comes through, gets signed into law. Pedal taverns are now legal. And got to know, again, the guy who runs that, his name's Derek Collins. And Derek Collins has just started the Driftwood Sauna Club, which is open on South Water Street, adjacent to the Cooperage and Boone and Crockett. So you can go there, sit in the sauna for about 15 minutes at 170 to 200 degrees, and then take a quick dip in the lake or the river in this case, and jump in, jump out, and you get that shock to the system. You do it over and over again for probably an hour or so, and sweat out all those impurities and have a good night.
I was wondering where that was going.
I had to tell the whole story because that makes good sense.
I was wondering where he was going, and I wasn't expecting that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are a sauna guy, that sounds like the place to be.
It's a fun time. Highly recommend. Recommendation of the week. We can bring that back for this one.
No steam room, though.
Deal.
No steam room.
Not a steam room guy, but be that.
Don't want to suffocate. Don't want to suffocate.
So finally, I know we've talked about this on the show a couple times. I like a good minor league sports team.
Mm-hmm.
I like a good minor league alternative identity. Let's bring those together right here in our backyard. Lake Country Dockhounds announced that for a long weekend, July 7th, the 9th, they're going to become the Wisconsin Dive Bars. And their logo is a bar dice cup with a bat.
So good.
And now they're, of course, announcing that they're going to have a dive bar area, which will have specific tickets, allow for attendees to access the private bar. Patrons can still use get the back bar, and there will be a pull tab machine and gaming machines in the dive bar. So I can't think of a better way to spend your summer nights than watching baseball, flipping through some pull tabs in a dive bar. So that's July 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Maybe we should have a new fashion conservative meetup or something.
We should. Love that.
I've seen, and I'm stealing from our competition, and by our competition I mean Dan Schaefer. He does like a promotional for his for his podcast / Substack or whatever. He does a little promotional during like 414, 414.
Yeah.
And I think he does like a subscribers like meetup or something. I just think it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
To do.
Let's hang out at the dive bar.
Yeah, let's hang out at the dive bar. I will still probably remain anonymous.
Well, if you want to hang out there, I love the hats. I'll be rocking a Dice Cup logo hat, hanging out. Let us know if that's something you want. Send us that text. Leave a comment.
I'm just throwing out ideas live here. I don't know. But I think it'd be kind of fun.
We can have some people there.
Have some beer bats.
Yeah.
The beer bats. Love that.
Yeah, we get there early enough. We can be the Wisconsin Brewing Company racing cans.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe do the Dizzy Bat.
No, not a Dizzy Bat person. I may sit up top and enjoy everything from the posture of the banana. What are they called? The very top?
The dive bar?
No.
Oh, you mean the euchre seats?
Yeah. Yes. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
But hey, if you're listening to this on Monday, send me that text. Send the Shadow Gov a message on his DMs are open.
Yes,
send us leave a comment. Send us a text via the pod. Let us know if you want to come hang out with us sometime this summer at a Lake Country Dockhounds game. And with that, you guys have a great Monday. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe this show. Leave the 5-star where available. Follow us on socials at New Fashion Pod. Good night.